So I'll continue on with the discussion of the kinds of karmas that we can create with the three jewels, especially the things that we want to avoid doing. Yeah, and this is relating to the whole topic of refuge, and I know that in the SAFE, the new refuge module will be coming out, so this should hopefully help those people as well. So I'm going backwards. I started with the Sangha, and so we'll go to the Dharma now. You know, I'm just backwards, that's all. Okay, so with the Dharma, one of the chief things we want to avoid doing is what's called abandoning the Dharma. So this doesn't mean just leaving aside your Dharma practice, although that too is something that we should definitely avoid doing, you know, because we're the ones who suffer when we do that. But in specific, the term abandoning the Dharma means you teach something that isn't the Buddha's teaching, saying it is the Buddha's teachings. Okay, so you've abandoned what the true Dharma that the Buddha said, and you're teaching something else. Yeah. So this could actually happen without too much difficulty. There may be some points that the Buddha taught that we don't personally agree with or we don't understand, and so we just say, well, the Buddha didn't teach that. Okay, like people saying the Buddha didn't teach rebirth. Yeah, it's very clear if you look at the scriptures. He did teach about, you know, rebirth. So there might be some discussion about the kinds of rebirth and all of this, but it's quite clear that he taught about it. Yeah. So even though you may not personally, you know, like the idea of rebirth or believe the idea of rebirth, you know, then just kind of saying, well, the Buddha didn't teach it. Okay. Or the idea of there being different life forms. Yeah. We can't see those, so it's easy to say, well, they don't exist. Yeah. So in those kinds of things, we may not have absolute certainty about them, but what we could, you know, say is, this is not something that I understand at the moment. That's more truthful than saying the Buddha didn't teach it, as if we were an authority on what the Buddha taught and didn't teach. Okay? So better just to say, you know, not something I understand at this particular moment, and leave it at that. Okay? Also some other negativities is, for example, saying the Buddha didn't teach the Mahayana teachings. Yeah? So of course, if you belong to a non-Mahayana tradition, they're going to say, what's wrong with that? That's what we believe. Yeah, but from the Mahayana viewpoint, to say, you know, that the Buddha didn't teach the Mahayana at all. Okay, now there may be some discussion about which sutras are, how do you pronounce the word apocryphal? You know, meaning false ones, and which ones, you know, that the Buddha really spoke. So there may be some discussion about that, some debate about that, some questioning about that, but that's quite different than with a very negative attitude, just kind of dismissing the whole tradition. And similarly, for somebody who may be a Mahayana practitioner, criticizing the Pali Canon or criticizing the fundamental vehicle and saying, oh, you know, kind of blah, 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 that doesn't lead anywhere. You know, and so here we're getting into a lot of these kind of stereotypes, you know, of what unfortunately some Mahayana people say about fundamental vehicle and what some fundamental vehicle people say about Mahayana. And it is stereotypes, but unfortunately, you know, there's some people who fall prey to that. So the whole idea is to think that, you know, all the teachings can be traced back to the same teacher, to the Buddha, yeah? And that, you know, the Buddha taught a lot of different methods in a lot of different ways, because sentient beings aren't the same. They have different tendencies, different aspirations, different capabilities. So the Buddha taught different things according to different people. Yeah? So we accept all of these as the teachings of the Buddha, instead of criticizing them. Okay. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't say, I find one tradition or one viewpoint or one kind of motivation more suitable for me. Yeah, we can certainly say that. And like I said before, we can certainly have discussion about what are the actual sutras and what things may have been added on, But all of that can be done without a negative mind and without completely dismissing other traditions or their scriptures or whatever. Okay? So similarly, we can debate with other traditions, or even within our own tradition, there's plenty of debate about how you practice and what kind of meditation works best and what order you should do practices in. And different teachings and different teachers will have different ideas about that, and we can debate and discuss that. But again, that's quite different than dismissing a whole category of teachings or criticizing a tradition or something like that. Okay? So it's quite important, actually. Yeah, because when you think, the Buddha's the origin of all this, so if we criticize with a negative mind some teachings or whatever, it's as if we're criticizing the Buddha. So it's best to say that approach works for those people. I'm really glad it works for them. It's not so effective with me, but it works for them, so that's fantastic. Yeah? Okay? And so in that way, to have the more diversity you see, the more faith in the Buddha you have as a skillful teacher. Yeah. Where some people have a very black and white mentality. I talked with one young man once. He came to visit, and he was saying, I just want to know which are the true scriptures, which is the right view, so I can practice that. So, each tradition there's some agreement on this, there's some disagreement, there's lots of different ways of approaching it. So, the more flexible our mind can be in terms of seeing things, then the more we can take all this in. It doesn't mean that we necessarily practice every single Buddhist tradition, because there's so many different practices and we might just get too scattered. But we can certainly, learn from every tradition with the common points and the, and the practices that they do. Learning those can add on to the practices we do. Okay? Because actually, if you really get into it and see things in depth, so much comes down to the same point. And it's more because things look different superficially that then we start to talk about a lot of differences. Okay? Then other things, such as putting Dharma texts on top of our Dharma cushion and carrying the text together with the cushion, because the cushion is, where you sit, where your rear is, and the text is containing the path to awakening. So you want to kind of respect them differently. In the same way, they usually say, don't have a separate cushion for your pillow that you sleep on and for your meditation cushion. Don't use the same, in that way. I'm thinking maybe I will continue this tomorrow, but we have enough to think about right now. Otherwise, we'll go too long. Okay. You have questions about this thing with the different traditions and approaches? Yeah. It's good, I think, when we're studying, to study, at the beginning, one kind of approach, and then add on other approaches. Yeah. If at the beginning we start reading everything without understanding how words are used in different traditions, then we can get very, very confused. Yeah. But if you learn what the words mean in your tradition, then when you read a book from another tradition, you can identify, oh, this word means something else here. I can tell by the context. Yeah. So it doesn't mean that tradition's wrong. It doesn't mean I need to get confused about, you know, all these different things. It's just this word is used differently here. Yeah. And then you can see things in different contexts. Yeah. So, yeah, what she's saying is I've always recommended that if there's something you don't agree with or understand so well, you put it on the back burner, you know, and come back to it later because your mind's going to change and develop. And so she was saying if, you know, you form a very, if you form an opinion about that thing that you don't understand or agree with, then later on it could actually be something that help you, but because you've already formed an opinion, you can't get beyond your opinion to be open-minded. Yeah. Yeah. Very much.